Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Loftus, and I'm Vice President for External Affairs at Munster Technological University. Delighted you're here with us this evening. You're most welcome to our event, which we've organised in partnership tonight with Kerry SciTech. The Succeeding Together series features interesting activities which are good for your physical and mental health, as well as being interesting and practical. During the various events which we've organised to date, we've covered everything from preparing great meals to exploring your artistic talents, to considering how to becoming an entrepreneur, to trying yoga and Pilates. Tonight's event is very interesting. It's about unleashing your adventurous streak. So have you ever been crippled by the thought of starting something new, embarking on a big adventure, or leaving your comfort zone? Well, if so, tonight's event is for you. We have some fantastic guests, Shane Finn and Karen Weeks, who will be introduced by my co-presenter, Orla Coughlin, who's representing the HR group from Kerry SciTech. They really have pushed their limits. They've gone above and beyond maybe many points in their life, or in terms of their ambitions, routinely. And they're happy to share their secrets with us, to tell some entertaining stories. And as the event goes on, if you've got some questions, please pop those into the Q&A section on this webinar. In addition to all of that, we have a great competition running this evening where you're in with a chance to win an adventure pack courtesy of Crua Outdoors. So you can win one of the world's best insulated tents and from one of the world's best insulated tents and outdoor gear companies. So a fantastic prize on offer. Make sure you tune in, listen to the question we ask, and send your replies to succeedingtogether@mtu.ie. So without further ado, I will call on Orla Coughlin to present Shane and Karen. Over to you, Orla.
Thank you, Michael. Tá fáilte le gachéine on behalf of Kerry SciTech. I'm Orla Coughlin. I'm the founder and CEO of a boutique consulting firm called the Rias Partnership, and I also do a number of non-executive things, including chairing the HR group at Kerry SciTech. I want to start by congratulating you, Michael, and all the staff in both CIT and IT Tralee on the recent formation of MTU. I am a Cork woman who's actually emigrated to Kerry, so I think I've kind of got the boundaries right. And I grew up about 5 minutes from CIT and saw at first hand over the years the progress and the contribution CIT made to the economy in Cork. I now live in Dingle and have done since 2017. And so over the last 5 years, I've seen huge impact and partnership with IT Tralee. So it really is about stronger together. And I think there was never a better time for this to happen. MTU, all of the staff, all of the students, and all of the stakeholders will have a key role to play in the coming years, as will all of us who work with you every day. And we're really grateful for the partnership tonight. No doubt that the economy and social prosperity of the Southwest region has been particularly challenged over the last 18 months, and MTU will, I know, have a tremendous role to play in the turnaround of that, which really starts today with the opening of some new businesses. Kerry SciTech is a not-for-profit member organisation. It showcases the region as a science, technology and engineering hotspot. So for us, Kerry is less about football and tourism and much more about talent, jobs and investment. We were established a few years ago to connect, promote and develop Kerry's science, technology and engineering ecosystem. We work with our members to attract, develop and retain talent in science, technology, engineering and mathematical sectors for companies as broad as Dairymaster, Exco, Lieber, Aspen Grove and a whole range of other companies that many people don't even know about in Kerry. We also develop programs of work, which is where my HR leadership steering group comes into play. And you're right, Michael, we have really pushed the boundaries in terms of our ambition over the last couple of years. As an HR leader myself for over the last 25 years, I saw a number of global crises impact our employees and their families all over the world. But COVID-19 is like nothing else, and no one on this call tonight, or who's going to listen to the tape, or any student of MTU or any staff member, or the stakeholder group in the community has been untouched by its impact. We recognise how difficult the last 14 or 15 months have been for everyone in our community, both in Kerry SciTech and across MTU, and in our broader community that we both as organisations serve, from employees, their families, businesses, students in the region and the wider community. So today is a more hopeful day, and we hope that our event tonight will give you even further hope and a couple of laughs as well along the way. More restrictions are lifted. All of us will have seen the news throughout the day. We see a little chink of light, and we're really proud to be partnering with MTU's Succeeding Together series tonight. Give something back to the whole community across the region and reinvigorate everyone with two very inspirational speakers who embody resilience, fortitude. I said to Karen just before we came on that I had been swimming with a small group in West Kerry this afternoon, and I looked out at the sea and thought, how in God's name is she going to cross the Atlantic? But I'm sure we're going to hear a lot about that later on. I think it's an incredibly courageous objective. We don't expect anyone, by the way, after this to undertake a triathlon, but we do hope that you'll leave feeling more positive, more uplifted about the future couple of months, and that you're inspired to take some of the tips and tricks shared for your next challenge. I'd like to introduce Shane Finn, who I've gotten to know since I moved to Dingle. Shane is an ultra endurance athlete and fitness business owner from the Southwest. He's running his first marathon at the age of 18 in age of spina bifida and hydrocephalus Ireland. He's since completed 100 marathons, ultra marathons and Ironman triathlons all over the world in his own inimitable low-key style. Shane's cousin Mary, who we've all gotten to know in Dingle, and we're privileged to do so, was the real catalyst in Shane's transition into a life of endurance sports. And since his first marathon in 2010, Shane and his team have raised over 300,000 for both charities. Some of these multi-day events have included 12 marathons in 12 days, which he did in 2014, 24 marathons in 24 days in 2017, and crossing the USA over 36 days in 2019, supported by his family, his friends, and a couple of natives from West Kerry. Shane spends his time running, cycling and training in the hills of West Kerry. He's the owner of Shane Finn Training, a fitness and endurance business with members from all over the world. Shane encourages his team and his clients to push their own limits, whether that's the first 5K or an ultra marathon. Along with fitness and coaching, Shane has spoken at many events like this, and these include the Irish Consulate, Boston Scientific, IBM and a whole others. And Shane is also the host of Pushing Limits podcast. And he's a friend of mine said recently, who is a football fanatic, how in God's name did the Kerry GA let him go? So Kerry GA's loss and ultramarathon's gain. With that, Shane, I'd like to hand over to you.
Orla, thank you very much. That was a fantastic intro. I really appreciate it. You've covered most of my first 5 minutes there anyway. So, listen, thank you very much for the fantastic intro. I'm going to begin, guys, this evening by just saying a huge thank you to both MTU and Kerry SciTech for putting this event on. I think the naming of the event is actually quite important. I pick little things like this out, and Succeeding Together is definitely something that I've had to foster and do over the last kind of, I suppose, 11 years now at this stage, really. I suppose when I look back, and I don't look back a lot, I'm more of a looking forward kind of a guy, but a lot of the things that, I might have done individually on my own wouldn't have been possible without other people and without a team and without support. So definitely, I think the wording of Succeeding Together is definitely very much so going to mask in very nicely with what I'm going to chat to you guys about this evening as well. Also, in Orla's introduction, I was kind of thinking about, Karen rowing across the Atlantic. I took a plane the last time across the Atlantic, and I plan on taking planes across the Atlantic for the foreseeable future. So maybe Karen will cover between Dingle and Boston, and I've covered from Boston to San Francisco. So we'll surely have a few stories between the two of us. So guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to chat for about 20 minutes or so on a couple of different topics. The main one that I'm going to cover, guys, this evening is resilience. So resilience, it's an important enough topic. It's something, I suppose, that I think about quite a lot. It's been a big part of my life and a big part of my family members' lives as well. As Orla mentioned again in my introduction, running has been a very, very significant part of my life, and I don't really say that lightly. I always, sometimes the art of storytelling almost is what comes across in some of these talks, and I always do start with this photograph because this, you know, everybody sees the end result. Everybody, you know, sees me finishing my final day crossing America in 2019. Thankfully, I didn't do it in 2020, and it would have been scuppered by the C word that we now know as what's ruined all of our adventures over the last year. But it didn't happen overnight. I suppose to give you guys a little bit of a background, and like some of it's already been covered, like I said, but I ran my first marathon when I was 18 years old. Now to what I know now about human performance and training and whatnot and physiology, that was probably not the wisest decision to make. However, it set me up on a very interesting path over the last 11 years, and I've really enjoyed it, and I'm still enjoying it and still having a lot of fun. I set up my first business when I was 19, and I currently have clients from all over the world, which is it's just fantastic, and it's very rewarding. And you know, I know that I am very lucky, and I'm very grateful to have maybe set up my own business through what I'm very passionate about. So it makes each day fun, and I really enjoy that. From the charity work and the charity events, in 2014, I ran across Ireland. In 2017, I ran around Ireland. And then in 2019, I realized that Ireland was getting a little bit too small. So I had to head overseas, and I decided to cross America in 2019. Each event, you know, links in quite nicely with each other. You know, in 2014, that was my first kind of multi-day endurance event. It was quite difficult. Again, I was quite new to the multi-day endurance scene. Hadn't covered a lot of that kind of stuff before. 2017, as you can see there, there's a 3-year gap. You're like, where did you go? What happened? I was working on my business, trying to grow my business, trying to set roots, and you know, I had a vision for what I wanted to do. And I'm just gonna, I suppose, you know, like I said, some of these things go on a little bit longer, but I'm going to compress it down a small bit this evening and just get across one little quick point. And I do cover it again soon, but I think it's nice just to get it in for some context. And it's, you know, why would you do this kind of stuff? Well, it is hard to explain in a short amount of time, but in the Christmas of 2015, 2016, I went out for dinner with my family, as you know, as you do over Christmas, and we happened to bump into my cousin Mary's doctor, or one of her doctors, who was now retired and happened to be in Dingle, where I'm from, over Christmas. And he says to me, he said, "Are you the cousin who does the running?" And I was like, "Is it that obvious?" I was like, that's who I am. And, you know, we were chatting and stuff like that. And he was just about to head out the door, and he turns around to me, he goes, "Your cousin, I don't know if you know this, but she feels the feeling of pain 24 hours a day." And for me, that was one of the moments in my life. The only thing I can compare it to was almost like, and it sounds terrible, but almost like the moment where we all found out about 9/11, the terrorist attack in America. That was almost another one of those moments for me in my life. And it really, I suppose, shook me to the core. I just remember that whole Christmas being completely numb, being like, what are you doing? Like, you have so much more to give. There's so much more you can do, et cetera, et cetera. I actually had decided in 2014 that I wasn't going to do any more of this kind of stuff because I had a business to run, you know, we had bills to pay, et cetera, et cetera. So I couldn't be going off running around the country every couple of weeks. So that quickly changed, and I realized that, look, I've been given a gift, and that gift is good health. I've been given 2 legs that I can use every single morning to get up out of bed and give the day the best possible shot that I can. So in 2017, I headed on. We ran 24 marathons in 24 days, because the people that I've gotten to know over the last number of years very much so have had to take succeeding together into their lives in some way, shape, or form. You'll meet some of the people that I've met over the last number of years as well. And if I glance to my left, I'm looking at my clock, by the way, okay? I like to keep to my time. So we went for 24 days because there's 24 hours in a day. And that's where I came up with a number. And it wasn't just double 12. Sometimes, you know, it took me 12 days in 2014 to run from Phoenix Park to Dingle, down what we call the Old Dublin Road, where we used to go to All Ireland's when I was a child. We used to go to the Old Dublin Road. In 2019, across the US. And in that time, myself, my family, and support crew, we've raised over 300 grand for charity. And I put that point in last because I actually think it's quite important to leave it last, because, you know, for me, it's probably the bottom of the rung when it comes to things like achievements and, you know, what are you proud of? And the money is probably the least important thing really for me, because what I'm most proud of is I'm most proud of the hope and happiness we got to bring to people. You know, I'm very, very grateful for the amount of people I got to meet over the last kind of 8 to 9 years. the smiles that we brought to children's faces all over Ireland that have no reason to really smile, you know. So for me, that's really what the last 10 years have been about. And, you know, the 300,000 euros is fantastic. I'm really proud of it, but there's other things that maybe people can't see that I'm nearly more proud of, if that makes sense. As Orla mentioned as well, guys, sorry now if this, I don't want to be rubbing Kerry in your face too much, but I am from a very, very beautiful place in Ireland, and I'm really lucky to be able to train here year round. I know obviously the weather isn't ideal all the time, but I work with what I have. To be honest with you guys, growing up, you know, I kind of took where I was from for granted completely. It was only until I, you know, started to run and train and stuff like that. I was always a bit of an adventurous child. You know, I would race the sheepdog up the hill and things like that, and who could bring the sheep down fastest, etc., etc. My dad would time us and things like that. So I always wanted to be outside. I think my running career started in third year in what we know as the CBS boys school in Dingle, and I only decided to run for the school because it meant I would miss double maths every one Wednesday a month. So that's how my running career technically kind of started. And like I said, you know, only in the last kind of 10 years or so, you know, it's kind of a pinch me moment every single time I get to go out and train and I get to spend time in the hills or time on the roads around here. It's really, really fantastic. And as I suppose I posed a question earlier on, is like, you know, why? Like, why do you do stuff like this? I ask myself this question probably on a weekly basis as well, guys. So, you know, I'm in the same boat as you when it comes to asking this question. But, you know, I suppose for me, like I said earlier on, it's more about the people I've met. And first of all, what I want to do here is I want to introduce you to my friend Aina. So Aina's from Kildare, and Aina is one of the happiest little boys I've ever met in my whole life. I met Aina and his mom and his dad during the 24 marathons, 24 days. I was running into Newbridge, which is in County Kildare. And, you know, this little boy was at the side of the road about 1 kilometer from the kind of finish point on that day in Newbridge. And he was just really happy to see me. His dad and his mom actually wheeled him the last kind of kilometer with me and things like that. And we've become very, very good friends since. And this is after I'd finished the 24 marathons. They had come to Dingle. I met them in Dublin. So you do get very connected with the families, with the children and things like that. And, you know, like this guy has had so much things go wrong for him in his life so far. But he continues to smile, you know, when if he's ever in Dublin and he goes to the hospital, one of his main doctors is Jack McCaffrey, the former Dublin footballer. So, you know, every time I go in, I get stick about Kerry football and things like that, but it's okay. I can take it. I'm well able to take it because I've dished it out for long enough. So, but he's always happy. I go to visit him in the hospital. He's always happy. Thumbs up, just comes out of another major surgery. And, you know, he's smiling with a thumbs up. And for me, like, I know the main topic I wanted to cover this evening was resilience. And for me, this is what resilience is, because when you look at resilience in the dictionary, when you look at the term, what does resilience actually mean? It's the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. Now, what I want to do this evening is one of the things I want to do is I want to challenge everybody here that's watching it live, whether you're here on Zoom or you're on social media or you're watching it back as a recording. I want you to just sit and think, you know, where have I showed resilience today? Could I have shown resilience in maybe somewhere that I didn't? You know, resilience, sometimes we think resilience is, you know, climbing the big mountain, you know, whatever, running the long run. And it's not really. We all show resilience each day. I guarantee if you took out, I'm a big note taker. If you took out a pen and a paper and just wrote down 1 or 2 places that you showed resilience today, I'm sure you'd find it. But sometimes we don't give ourselves the credit for it, or we can't identify it. So resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. You know, how we perceive that. I think perception of resilience is really important. I think about all this stuff in a very, very deep sense. But what I want you guys to do is I want you guys to understand that you actually have the opportunity to be resilient as well. If you think about it, the last year, and I just, you know, did a post literally 20 minutes before we jumped on the call here, was that it's been a tough year. And a lot of the issues and a lot of the struggles that people have faced, we can't see them. They're in our mind. We can't see them. So everybody, all of us have had to show resilience in some way, shape or form in the last year or more even, you know. So that's what I want to do this evening. I'm not here to kind of, you know, ram this down your throat. I'm here more to kind of jump in, get you guys thinking, and send you off on your own kind of your own path, your own direction, and ask your own questions. So like I said, resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulty. So it means different things to different people. One of the next kind of thing I want to kind of maybe jump into a little bit is, it's still around resilience, but I think this has been literally an epitome of me over the last 11 years or so. And I'm still victim to this actually myself at the moment, is being naive enough to start and stubborn enough to finish. I think it's a very Irish quote. I don't know who it's from, but I think it's a very Irish way of looking at things. And to be honest, for me, this has been a very much so a huge part of everything in the last 11 years. All the events I've listed off there, I was very naive to think I could do them, and I was just too stubborn to get them done. And I think sometimes, we just have to make a decision and go for it, whether that be in business, whether that be in our personal lives, maybe it's in our health, maybe it's our fitness, relationships, fine. It could be anything. It doesn't really matter what it is, but you have to be a little bit naive enough to start, because if you keep waiting, I'll start it when I'm this, or I'll join but I'll lose a little bit of weight before I join the gym, and little things like this. Okay. So, don't be afraid to be naive to starting. We're all naive in some way, shape, or form. But then when you do start, be stubborn enough to finish. I think as Irish people, we're stubborn as they come anyway. So, foster a bit of that stubbornness. I think it's really important. And that's, I guess, people ask me like all the time, like, how do you keep going? I'm like, I don't know really, to be honest. I just kind of, a bit stubborn, and I just keep doing it because I don't want to, not that I don't want to fail, but I don't want to not finish something I said I'd start, One of the next kind of quick thing, guys, I want to move into, I'm going to share some more quotes and some more thoughts and stuff there really soon. But one of the things that tends to provoke a lot of interest in people over the last number of years is the Crossing America event, which was in 2019. And again, I remember planning this thing out and being like, I don't know. I mean, I might need another year and we'll do it in 2020, but I'm glad I did it in 2019 now. So how did I decide to run across and cycle across America? Well, we'd finished the 24 marathons in 24 days, and we raised a phenomenal amount of money. And it was really, really fantastic. The biggest fundraiser the charity had ever had. There were going to be extra summer camps for kids all over Ireland. They were going to be able to put on summer camps in the west of Ireland for kids in Clare, Donegal, Galway, Mayo, Cork, Kerry. It was fantastic. Everything was all rosy. And about a month or two after the event finished and I had recovered and I'd gone back training and working and stuff like that, and I was actually in a town called Fairfield, which you'll see in the top corner there of the map. It's in Connecticut, about 60 minutes north of Manhattan, and there's a university there that has an affiliation with Dingle. I was there doing a little bit of work with them, and it was all great, all happy. I was back training, etc., etc., and I got a phone call. One phone call can change a lot of things, and this phone call definitely changed a lot for me. And the phone call was with bad news, saying that the funding had been cut again for the next year, meaning that all these things that we were planning to help fundraise and fund with the 24 marathons were now no longer going to be able to happen. So it was a real kick in the teeth, for me. Again, post 24 marathons in 24 days, on the 25th day, I was like, hey, you need to stop, and you need to go home and work and keep doing what you're doing, because you can't keep doing this basically. But it didn't last very long, and I'm kind of glad it didn't last very long, because for me, getting that phone call in that cafe, looking out that window that morning in Connecticut, I suppose, look, it was something I was looking for anyway. When I look back at it, I say I'm glad these things finish and stuff like that, but in reality, you really do miss them when they're gone, and you miss the community, you miss the meeting people and making people happy and doing things together and succeeding together. You miss that, and I do miss that. And endurance, and I'm sure Karen can, wrap this into hers as well. Can be a very, very lonely place as well. I would always call myself an introverted extrovert, if there's such a thing. I love spending lots of long hours on my own training, but I also love, people and meeting people and talking to people and stuff like that. So for this to happen again, I was like, it was a sign from whoever is up there saying that you ain't finished, you got to go again. Now I had, really milked it in Ireland for the last kind of 4 years, and we'd done every county in Ireland. So I was like, all right, I got to leave Ireland. I cannot do something in Ireland again. So I decided to cross America. It's kind of a dream of every endurance athlete. I'm sure, Karen, when you get to the US, you're going to say, I'm going to cycle and run to San Francisco. It's a long trip. It's a long flight. But that was my next plan. And I was hoping to raise the money raised enough that had been cut from the funding. So about 80 grand. We ended up raising like 89 grand, which was phenomenal. And make sure everything that was going to be cancelled got to go ahead. It's sad that these things keep happening in Ireland. But anyway, it just was the way it went. I'm going to just quickly scroll through maybe 10 or 15 photos here just to give you guys a bit of a visual. And I always start with the worst, okay? When you start with the worst, things can only get better. So again, I always start with this photo. Sometimes I decide, like, it's a bit blurry. I might take it out. I don't know, am I kind of half crying or something? I don't know what's going on in this photo. But basically, I'm lost, okay? We'd spent, I'd say, 4.5 months logistically planning everything out. And this was a point where I really had to show resilience, okay? But I didn't know it at the time, because sometimes you think everything's going wrong, and the capacity to recover quickly from a difficulty, well, this was quite the difficulty. We lost all phone coverage on our phones, nothing, couldn't contact the crew. The crew had gone onto the campsite. I had the campsite on my Google Maps. I was following them. Phones got cut off, no coverage, no maps, had no idea where I was going. Ended up beside a river in Sacramento. Pitch dark. I had done 298 kilometers at this point in this first day. And I remember sitting on the curb outside this petrol station, or in America, as they call it, a gas station, sitting there shaking my head, being, you're in for some month. You're day one and you're already lost. You're 20 minutes away from the crew. And this guy pulls up beside me in a pickup truck. And the pickup truck was the size of an Irish Arctic lorry. It was massive. And he rolls down the window and he goes to me, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Not really." And he saw my bike with the lights on and he said, "Where are you going?" And now we were still in California, obviously, at this stage. And I looked at him, I said, "I'm going to New..." There we go. We're back. Okay. I'm not sure. I'm not too sure what happened there. There we go. We are back. And where is my...
I think this is what you call resilience.
Literally, in a nutshell. In a nutshell. What's that?
This is planned. This is showing resilience.
There we go. This is a test. Where is we now? Okay. There we go. Cool. So you guys can see my screen there again, yeah?
Yeah, can see your screen.
Can you see a load of snow?
Yep. Big mountain.
Great. Okay. So again, like I said, sometimes these plans go completely out the window. We 10 foot of snow either side of the road.
Okay, I apologize. It does look like we've lost Shane again. Mervyn, can I ask you to come in?
Yes, I think the best thing would, Shayna's back again here, actually.
Yeah, I keep getting dropped out there, guys, whenever I try to share my screen. So what I'll do is I just won't share the screen anymore, just in case that happens again. But what I will do is there was literally no more, there was only a couple more photos really other than that, So it was one of the things, I guess, guys, that I wanted to just put across at the end of that, because if I try to share my screen again, it might just cut me out, was that, small little things that we can do each day that help us kind of show resilience. And like I said, there's many times, you don't have to be crossing a continent, in order to show resilience. It could just pop up in every day. It could pop up, could be your first decision of the day. It might be getting out of bed. It might be cooking your breakfast. It might be making a decision to do X or Y instead of Z, So little things, guys, pop up each and every day. And like I said, it's the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. We don't have to do mega things in order to get to where we want to go. The last thing I kind of want people to take away from this evening is that, I need to go and run across a country. You don't really. It comes down to the minute little things that you do every day. Because I remember at one point somebody sharing something with me, and it's like, small keys can open big doors. So your small little things that you do every single day will actually get you to kind of where you want to go. And I do think, even because today, May the 10th, 2021, there's a bit of optimism in the air. Things are opening back up. Hopefully it's the last time we have to open and bring back up and this never happens again. Sometimes we can feel a little bit anxious to kind of start doing things. We have to start doing everything again. What I would kind of look at maybe is, circle back, control what you can control, take control of your day, show resilience when you have to, because there'll be plenty times where you will have to, show resilience in your day. So that was kind of it, guys, for me. Other than that, there was just like 6 other photos I wanted to share, but it keeps cutting me out. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish off with a small little quote from, as I'm a big quote guy. And the small little quote comes from my cousin Mary. Some of you guys might know my cousin Mary. She's an absolute scream. She's a tough cookie. She's definitely showed resilience in her whole life. And it came on day 27 when I was crossing the USA. We got hit with another snowstorm, and it was quite difficult. I had lost the feeling in these two fingers, and I couldn't kind of turn my head to the left. But I was able to move forward. I was able to keep going. And I remember before I left Ireland, we said that we'd FaceTime every third day at 6 o'clock Irish time. So usually we were on my lunchtime when I was crossing the US. And, I told her that there was an 80% chance of snow today. And she kind of giggled at the other end of the FaceTime and the phone. And she said, do you know what that means? And I said, no, I don't know what that means. She goes, and this is from a lady that has, 99.9% of the things in her life have gone against her. And she said, if there's an 80% chance of snow, there is also a 20% chance that it won't happen. And for her to say something like that to me at that point, it was the only time crossing the whole continent of America I actually cried properly. And I remember coming out of the camper van and just getting on my bike, and, the crew were like, where are you going? I was like, I have to keep going. I have to get to New York on that last day. So, it's a different way to look at things. And I suppose, like I said, everybody here on the call, we've all things we can be upset about and angry about and, not appreciative of, but find little things that bring you joy. Whether that's a walk in the morning or a run, or if you want to run across a continent, go for it. But it's not exactly a fun thing to do, but it is fun sometimes. So guys, that's it from me. What I'll do is I'll pass back over to Orla, I guess. And again, thank you guys very much for having me. I hope I didn't go over time or anything like that, but I'm looking forward to hearing Karen's story as well. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. And I think we're hanging around for some Q&A as well afterwards. So if there's anything else I can answer or help you guys with, I'd be delighted to do so.
Thank you, Shane. It was great. So I think we've all learned, and you've taught us in the last few minutes, but over the last 18 months, resilience is a word that has been much bandied around. And I think what we've all learned from your stories is resilience is about the micro stories. It's also about the personal stories, about the community stories, and it's about how we support each other. So I certainly won't be running across America, though I did follow you every day on that journey online. What you've done is not easy to do, but you've certainly given us a challenge to think about what we can do. Now delighted to introduce Karen Weeks. I only recently met Karen as a result of this event, and I've been really inspired by her work. Karen aims to be the first Irish female to row solo 3,000 miles across the Atlantic in December in 2021. And during my corporate career, I traversed that in a nice, cozy plane with a glass of something nice in my hand, hundreds and hundreds of times. And occasionally look down. So Karen, I am in awe of what you're doing. And completing this distance will also make Karen the 20th woman in the world to row across an ocean solo. In addition to all of this, Karen is a lecturer at Munster Technology University. She has been there since 2004, and she focuses on health and leisure degrees. Got a PhD in sports psychology. Karen has worked extensively with both elite and non-elite athletes. I did try to find out whether she's working with the Cork football team, Shane, but she won't give anything away. But she specialises, to be fair, in the endurance genre. Endurance exploits have been a passion for Karen for all of her life and has included water and land-based journeys. In a recent interview about her upcoming adventure, Karen said, big seas, potential capsize, severe weather, or marlin attacks might explain why only 19 women worldwide have ever completed solo ocean rows. Karen, in addition to doing this, is focusing on women's empowerment as part of her challenge, and the hashtag #SheCanDo2021 will be part of the brand for her campaign. She says her campaign is duty focused, so in addition to the actual endurance element, she wants young women, particularly school-age girls or girls who are having, challenges in early stage careers, or any woman that wants to embrace a new challenge, to follow her preparation and the experience she has during the voyage. And Karen hopes that that will provide a platform for encouraging women and girls to believe in their own individual abilities to succeed. And I think that's just such a wonderful way to do it. Journey like Karen's, though, is something, thanks to social media, a bit like Shane's journey across America, is something we can all participate in and learn. So I would ask you and urge you to follow her, including her preparation and her website, SheCanDo2021.org. I'm sure will be featured on the ending slides of this. Karen is also still building her sponsorship plan. And I hope that, those of you who are here from the corporate side of the world might give some consideration to seeing how you can help her, or if someone on the call knows someone who can help her, to get in touch. Karen, without further ado, it's my honor to introduce you, and over to you.
Thanks a million, Orla. Great to be here, and thanks very much to MTU and Kerry SciTech for inviting me here today. Basically, following on from Shane's thing, it's actually, I talked to Shane last week for the first time ever, and it was like talking to myself in so many ways. But I think the two of us have the same sort of philosophy on life and the same sort of ideas with life and everything. So basically what I'd like to talk to you about today here is basically how we can push ourselves out of our comfort zones and why we should, some of the benefits of that, and some of the tools that we can use, some of them linking in with what Shane talked about, and some of them just from a sports psychology perspective. So just to give you a little bit about my background, I've been doing endurance stuff for a long time. And I actually have cycled across America already, and I've cycled solo and unsupported across Canada. And the trip I'm going to talk to you about today, or relate this to, is not only my row, but also a cycle I've done 2 years ago. But other places I've been in, K2 and base camp over in Pakistan and over in Nepal, and cycled the Camino on mountain bikes with buddies of mine, and I've sailed the Atlantic a couple of times already. So I'm not new to endurance, and I suppose one of the things I've learned with endurance is that you build it up gradually. And I think that relates to what Shane was speaking about in a way. Just a little bit of background about my PhD. I went over to K2 base camp and I interviewed K2 mountaineers. On the left-hand side of the slide there, that's one of the photos with the mountains surrounding you. They're all 18,000 meter peaks, 18,000 feet peaks, and it's just amazing. And then my other part of my study was ultra distance runners. So they were all 100-mile plus elite world champions, or they just exceeded in their field. So 100-mile plus, as Shane definitely understands and can relate to, it's not an easy distance. And I was interviewing guys that had done it in the North or South Pole, and that have run across deserts and across continents, etc. And it is quite an endurance challenge. So what about ultra endurance and the mental game? And just to talk to you about what tools that I've learned from those K2 mountaineers and from those ultra runners, what tools that they taught me, and that I could come back then and share those with people I work with in sports psychology, or use them more selfishly in my own head. And I suppose my modus operandi for covering this area for my PhD and my master's as well, actually, was really from a selfish perspective to maybe rob people's mental cognitive tools and then share them with others, and just to see how far I could actually push myself then as well.
Karen, can I just interrupt you there? Can you share your screen? Sorry, we're not seeing the slides. Sorry.
Oh, are you not?
No.
Oh, geez, I don't know what's happening there. Sorry. Hang on a second now. Just a second. What happened there? You've missed some brilliant shots. Sorry about that. I'll just flick back to this one, and there we go. Okay, So these are some of the ones from previous trips. I was wondering why I couldn't see myself actually. And then on the slide on the left is K2, and the slide on the right is an ultra distance runner. And then this was actually taken on the Lofoten Islands in Norway. And so this is where I'm going to just start off my discussion and give you a bit of insight into some of the mental cognitive tools that you can use. So a couple of years ago, I went from Anchorage, Alaska on my bike, solo and unsupported, down as far as San Francisco. And one of the challenges with here was that when you're going from Alaska, which you can see Anchorage is at that top arrow there on the left hand of your screen, from the top there, when you go through Alaska, it's fine. Yet there are some cars and there are some people. But when you get into the Yukon, it's really, really remote. And that remoteness was the most remote I'd been. Like going across America, you might go maybe 2 days without meeting people or seeing people. But the thing that had it was sort of made me nervous and scaring the heebie-jeebies out of me at the time was that in the Yukon, there's an awful lot of bears and there's moose and a lot of wildlife. And so not only was I on my own, but all I had was my tent between me and the bears potentially. And it was I'm not trying to dramatize this, but it was a fact. It was their mating season as well. So I just had to be cognizant of that. So before, I suppose, my Canadian trip and before this trip in Anchorage, Alaska, I did have that moment of, am I mad? Am I crazy? What am I doing here? And the focus that I had to remind myself of was to remain positive, to avoid negative people, to avoid negative thinking. And as I spoke in an MTU session the other day, which I won't focus on today because I did speak about them the other day, but looking at the things that are in my control and the things that were out of my control. And the things that were out of my control, I needed to incorporate mental strategies that would help me overcome them. So the controllable stuff I could write down and I could tick off, I could go through them methodically and address them methodically. But with the uncontrollables, it was challenging because you have to visualize yourself in specific situations or managing different situations. And the visualization is a really, really powerful tool. So the things that I was apprehensive of, as you can see on the left-hand slide, there was ice cream on one side of the road and guns and ammo on the other side of the road. And a lot of, I'm sure Shane saw this across America as well, and certainly in Alaska and the Yukon, it's all guns and it's all ammo. Nearly every shop you go into is guns, and everybody has their guns in the back of their pickup truck and all this sort of stuff. And the other thing, as I said, was the bears. So you have a bear locker, which you can see in the tops of the slide there. So you could put your food, you could put your drinks, you could put everything in those when they were there. But sometimes I was camping in wilder places, without bear lockers. And then you had to bring things with you in the tent, including the bear spray. I had the bear spray, which you can see at the bottom slide, and my valuables in the tent with me every night. But then if you didn't have a bear locker nearby, you'd have to walk down the road and pull your bag up a tree and leave it dangling up a tree. And then you get back into your tent and you'd have cycled quite a long distance that day, and then you'd wake up and you go, oh my god, the toothpaste is still in my bag. So then you'd have to get out of your tent, hope no bears would see you, back down, pull down the bag, put the toothpaste into the bag, pull it back up the tree, and off you go again. On the right hand side too, some of the areas I had to filter water. So it was just, those were the challenges, and to get through that you just need to, I suppose, get a bit of be a bit of a risk taker, but be a methodical risk taker. Make sure it is measured. But the benefits from that then is you get to see the most amazing parts of the world. I think like the west coast of Ireland is still in my top 2, but Alaska and the Yukon, for remoteness, for expanse, like the sky is so expansive, the mountains are so expansive, the rivers are big, everything over there is big, and it is just so beautiful. And I was just about to say actually that the sky is always really clear, but then I put in that photo of that dirty the boat giving off a lot of pollution, but the skies are generally really, really clear, absolutely stunning. So how do you cope in these situations? This was the Trollstigen. This is one of the trips a friend of myself did in Norway. And as you're coming down from, say, Nordkapp down to Bergen, we were cycling again, but this Trollstigen is, as you can see in the distance on the lowlands, the road goes way, 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 way back down the valley. And then you have this spaghetti sort of road, really steady incline all the way to the top. It's a long climb, and you have to sort of manage your time, I suppose, and how far you're going and how fast you're going. But one of the coping strategies I wanted to just share maybe with people this evening, and maybe they could try it in their own discipline or in their own measured way, whatever suits you, is association and dissociation. So from an associative perspective, basically what association means is you're focusing on what your body's doing. So as I was cycling up that hill, you're hauling 26 kg of gear in your panniers, you have water on the bike. So you're getting in there nice and slowly, nice and steady. And if you're using association, you are thinking about what your body's doing. You're thinking of your heart rate, you're thinking of your muscles, you're thinking of your cadence, you're thinking of your technique. And that in its own way is a distraction, which is, I suppose, the other end of the spectrum is this thing called dissociation. So dissociation, which I've thrown too much theory at you, dissociation is at the other end of the spectrum where you are trying to distract yourself. So you might be listening to music, you might be imagining yourself building a house or sailing an ocean or what the next day is going to involve. So it's basically distracting yourself from the activity that's happening. And the thing that works for me a lot of the time, and I'm sure it works for Shane and other athletes as well, is potentially a bit of both. So as I was going up this Trollstigen, I actually do remember the music I was listening to. I was listening to Sharon Shannon, that's the truth. Listening to Sharon, the trad blasting on my ears. And at the same time, you're just focusing on what your cadence doing, what your legs are doing. And before you know it, you're up at the top of the mountain, which is great. So it's just a little tool that maybe you could try. The second thing then, that this was taken from, I'm just checking the time here too. This was taken at the top of the north side of Lake Ontario. That was 4,000 miles across Canada. So I'd done about 2,500 miles at this stage. And this was one of the toughest sections of crossing Canada for me, in that this is the actual road, and it doesn't do it justice really, to be fair. It was about 2 days of non-stop going downhill for about 25 minutes. No, you'll be downhill in about 15, 20 minutes. And then you had a really, really steep climb for half an hour, 40 minutes, non-stop for about 300 miles. It was really, really tough. And as I was coming into the first 2, the first 3, first 4 hills, I was thinking, I was getting negative thoughts in my head, and I was going, I'm never going to be able to get this. And I've never walked up a hill yet. And I was thinking, this is my moment where I'm going to have to get off my bike and walk up to the top. But what I did was I deceived myself in the steepness of the hill. And I deceived myself in the amount of them and how long they were ongoing. And just to add into this, it was 34 degrees temperature. So I had the temperature, I had the steepness, and I had the hauling of all the gear on the bike. But what I did was I basically said in my mind, okay, sort of mental transference. So I transferred my headspace to a training run I do here in the Burren. And it's like, it's a road that I know really, really well. And I've done it 7,000 million times. And so basically when I was going up those hills, I just kept, I know each bush nearly as you go up the hill here in the Burren. I live in Kinvarren, South Galway. And as I was going up the hill, I just thought, oh yeah, there's that bit, and there's that bit, and there's the T junction, and there's that. And again, it just sort of, the time flew by. And then I got up to the top, and because I transferred that negativity in my head into a sort of a more positive mindset, that really, really helped me then manage the challenge of those inclines. So as Orla alluded to, thank you very much, Orla. Yeah, so my next trip is, and it's not taken from, I'm not just jumping into this just in case there are potential future sponsors out there. I basically am starting a trip in December, mid-December, and I'm rowing from the Canaries, as you can see there, over to Barbados. And the website's shecando2021.org. All the information is on that. But what I'd love to do just very briefly is just talk you through the philosophies, just a really quick overview of them, just to give you a little bit of insight. So basically, the She Can Do philosophy and ethos is, number one, to get me across the Atlantic. And as Orla said, would make me the first Irish solo female and the 20th female in the world to cross an ocean solo. And also, to illuminate two of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, gender equality and ocean conservation, and also to provide that platform. So when I was going across Canada, I wanted to look up solo females that have crossed Canada on their own, on their bike. And I couldn't find any really. There was very, very, very few. And I think from a female perspective, for me anyway, it's easier to relate to another female doing something, because men are usually stronger and faster and different talents in different ways. So for me, it was going to be easier to relate to a woman who'd done something similar. There's very, very few out there, and in some realms, not in all realms at all. So I think hopefully this She Can Do ethos can maybe encourage other girls and women to do some sort of adventure sports. A little heads out there to Somex Automation, who are our first sponsor in on the program so far, along with Collins Campers. So what we're doing then for the exciting stuff out of the row and sort of the tangents off the things from the row is we are currently working on developing a program to link with students in third level colleges as to educate the kids and the third level students on ocean conservation and increase their physical activity. So hopefully maybe they'll match my miles rowing or something. We still need to finalize that. And also the geology of the ocean and the geology of what's underneath us, and how we can do simple, doable behavioral changes to help sustain our environment and help sustain the oceans. And also, along with that, building a sense of community and responsibility. So there's an awful lot going on within She Can Do already, and it's really, really exciting. And the traction that we've built is just phenomenal. We only launched 10 weeks ago, and the media coverage we've had is amazing, and the positivity behind it is great. So happy days, long may that continue. So how can what we're doing help you, maybe encourage you to do something? This photo was taken a couple of weeks ago. We were doing a sea survival course down in Rinnaskiddy. And basically, I think that picture sort of depicts what I'm saying here on the left-hand side. So physically, we need to be proactive. We need to make things happen for ourselves. We need to open doors. We have to step back from waiting for other people to organize things for us. People, if you hang on waiting for somebody to organize something for you, or waiting for a team to do something with, sometimes it's not going to happen. So if it's a case of you wanted to do a 5K and you're waiting for two of your friends to join you in that 5K or 10K or a marathon or whatever, start yourself. Yeah, it's great having your friends around you, but if you have to start yourself, just go for it. Take some measured risks. So if you're doing more of an expedition-y type thing, have a look and do take some measured risks, and then mentally be proactive and positive. Because I'm such a firm believer, if you start talking negatively, it just creates a spiral, and that spiral gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you just get yourself into a sort of a negative headspace, and that is no good for anybody. And I think one of the most, I've found out loads, to be fair, in my PhD, but one of the most influential findings I found was chatting to the ultra marathoners or ultra runners and chatting to the K2 climbers. They all said, without exception, that if negative stuff came into their head, they had to get rid of it because it wasn't beneficial. So if they're doing that at an elite stage, then obviously it's going to work for us as well, being non-elite. So practical coping tools, yeah, thanks to MTU, the Cork end of things, linking me in with the National Maritime College of Ireland. Went down there a few weeks ago, and the guys, and they were brilliant. We capitalized life rafts and ribs and had simulated storms and everything. But those practical tools of sea survival will really help me on my row. Hopefully I'll never have to use them, but learning those practical skills, that is an example of something being under my control. So that's one of my controllables ticked off. It's not that I'm perfect at it, but at least it's something that I'm more knowledgeable about now, and that I'll be able to manage things better if things do go a bit pear-shaped as I go across the Atlantic. I probably will do another one before I go, to be fair, but it's given me a great introduction. Another thing that I'm doing constantly is visualization. So the boat here on the left is similar to the boat that I'll be rowing. And so I'm visualizing all the time, whether I'm on the Concept 2 rower, whether I'm out in the kayak, whether I'm on my bike, whether I'm walking along the beach or whatever. I'm visualizing myself in big seas. I'm visualizing myself capsizing. I'm visualizing myself being hit by marlin, as Orla said. But there's so many things that visualization can really can help us all with. And if you do look at Olympians, 99% of Olympians who are again at the elite end of their athletic field, 99% of them would also use visualization as a mechanism for enhancing their performance levels. So I would strongly advise people to practice visualization, and it's not something that just happens overnight. It's like training a muscle. It's like training your biceps or your quads or building up your glutes, whatever you're doing. You have to work at it. It's not just going to appear. You can't just, a week before a big game or a big event, you can't just go, oh yeah, okay, I'm going to do this, this, and this. It doesn't work that way. I've learned that the hard way with clients and with myself. You really have to practice it, and it's an ongoing thing that you really need to work on. So visualization. And then just the other, just to quickly touch on this, having a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset. Again, I'm a strong believer in this. So like to build up your resilience, like Shane was talking to us about, and to build up that attitude and mindset, you really need to make sure you can try and make sure your headspace is in a growth-based mindset. If we're in a fixed-based mindset, we are somebody who just accepts you as you are, like as in Karen, say I'm chatting about me, that I accept that, okay, if I can't do something, I'm never going to be able to do that. Or if I can't, if I don't believe I'll do that, I never will do that. Whereas the growth mindset allows you to make mistakes and to chance things and to push yourself a little bit further and learn from those things, learn from those mistakes and grow your own mindset. So if I could encourage people to take one thing again from this, is not only the tools, but to try and tap into having that growth versus a fixed mindset, because that will allow you to grow further and push yourself out of your comfort zone, which is one of the things she can do is promoting, is just to go a little bit out of your comfort zone, no matter what, in what context, whether it's in life, in sport, in your job, in your family, whatever, it doesn't matter. Just pushing yourself outside that comfort zone a small bit. So my little nuggets of wisdom here is, if you do something or start doing something you've had in your mind for a long time, if there's something that is just niggling away or hammering at your brain, niggling away, and you'd love to do it, but you don't feel you have the nerve, make a list of the controllables and the uncontrollables. Make a list of what is under your control and what you need to do to make that happen. If you need to pull people in to help you do that, you can do that then, but you need to make sure you just start making a plan, a structured, measured plan to make something happen, and it will happen. Push your boundaries, move out of your comfort zone, as I've spoken about, and avoid negativity, as I've also spoken about, and surround yourself with positive people. That's really, really important. I think sometimes if we're in an institution or a university or a business or whatever, sometimes we do get into that headspace of negativity, and it nearly becomes a habit. And if that happens, and if you're in a group, and I know we're not all together anymore at the moment anyway with COVID and stuff, but if you're in that scenario, just try and step away from that and go and link yourself with the more positive thinking people, because that negative stuff is not doing anybody good. So if it's negative, make sure if it is coming from a negative standpoint that it's proactive. Whereas if it's positive and proactive, you're going to get much more done. And then my final little word of wisdom is the harder I work, the luckier I get. I think that philosophy is so true. So if you want something to happen, you have to work hard at it. And as Shane says, like even for any of these trips, for the rows or the cycles or the runs in Shane's case, there's a team behind it. I couldn't do this She Can Do without my buddies who are really working hard behind the scenes. And we're making strides forward on getting She Can Do to be a successful campaign, which I have no doubt it will be. So if anybody would like to follow She Can Do, please do at She Can Do 2021 on all the usual Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or that's our website, shecando2021.org. And other than that, I will hand back to Orla, and thank you very, very much for your patience, and thanks for listening. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Karen. That was really, really fantastic. A wonderful presentation. And Shane as well, we're very grateful to you for your fantastic insights. We have a series of questions coming through. We'll throw them out to you now. So the first one is addressed to Karen and Shane. You're both very inspiring. Did you ever come to a meltdown stage whereby you had convinced yourself you could not go any further on your challenge, and how did you deal with it?
Ladies first.
Yeah, of course I have. Not that I ever thought I'd stop, but I did. I alluded to this the other day in the MTU presentation, but yeah, sometimes on say, day 2 or 3 of trips or that I've done before, it usually seems to happen during the start of the trip or maybe a few weeks into it. But yeah, I have, but I've never said, no, I'm not going on. I have had in my head, okay, I'd love to give up. But then the other half of my brain, I argue with myself in my head and I say to myself, okay, if a pickup truck came up now, this is from a cycling context, if a pickup truck came up now and offered me a lift, would I get in? And my body was saying, yeah, of course you would. But my head was saying, not a hope would I get into that pickup truck. So I suppose my head maybe in some sense has tried, but no, I would never. No, it would take a lot for me to give up. I'll tell you that. What about you, Shane?
Very, very, very similar actually, Karen. Yeah, it's for me, I actually made this thing up myself. I didn't read this in a book or I didn't get it from anybody else. Basically, crossing the USA, I came up with a thing called it the 5-minute rule. And sometimes I'd have to call on the 5-minute rule numerous times in a day. So if I was getting into a negative headspace or if I was going through a hard time, or again, I remember 4 days in a row having a headwind. What I'd do is if I noticed myself getting a bit down or getting a bit negative, I'd give myself 5 minutes and I'd actually lap my Garmin on my bike and allow that 5 minutes to pass. And when that 5 minutes is up, I'd actually just rattle off 5 things that I was grateful for. And they could be the simplest of little things, a nice coffee, smoother roads, my back isn't sore, whatever. And now by the end, I was running out of things to be grateful for because I had to do it so many times in a day, but it really worked. It really worked. And I kept it really simple. And the last thing I kind of used then, I told myself, if I keep moving, America will run out of land. And again, I also made that up myself. But, sometimes we have to tell ourselves these things as well in order to keep ourselves going towards the final goal,
Yeah.
And thanks to you both. Great answers there. Next question, somewhat related. Any coping tools to manage panic when it sets in? If it sets in. I don't know if you guys ever get panicked, by the way.
Yeah, I think my first one, what I just actually mentioned there, I would probably use that technique quite a lot. I would have loved to have shared it in the chat and discussion, but I actually I'm getting ready for a big event in August, but I can't actually share the details yet because we're getting it through the relevant bodies and government agencies and whatnot to try get it, but it's looking good. But panic has set in a couple of times in training for that already, and it just I just try to keep it calm, like keep it really simple, focus on my breathing, staying as present as I can. And I think with fear, a lot of fear and panic, for me anyway, personally, it comes from when I think about things in the future. And I am not in the future. I am here right now. So that's what I try in my best to focus on.
Okay, Karen, I'm going to put the next question to you. I'm going to take Shane's response on that one just so that we can get through the questions.
Okay.
Can you recommend any groups to learn skills in kayaking based in Kerry? This caller has done it a couple of times, but they'd like to learn safety skills, etc.
Well, I suppose they could go through, I'm not 100% sure the Kerry-based ones, not living there, but I know Captain Ali do courses and stuff, but I'd say if they went to the Irish Sea Kayak Association, the Irish Sea Kayak Association would bring a lot of people for longer trips, and they have a lot of meetups, and then the Irish Canoe Union would be another place where they could join up. I don't know, Shane, would you know of another one in Kerry region?
I know locally here in Dingle anyway, we have Irish Adventures, but I think they do more from a tourism aspect, trips and tours. I don't know, from a training perspective, I'd probably, maybe your recommendation, Karen, might be a good place to start, but I could be wrong as well.
Okay, next question here aimed at you, Karen, and I don't know if you've ever had to deal with it. Hi, Karen, how do you deal with failure?
We all deal with failure at some stage, but you just get up and brush yourself off and say, okay, that's fine. So I suppose, I've dealt with failure. Everybody deals with failure. But I think that links in with what I was saying about the growth mindset, is that's your attitude to your reaction to the failure. So if there's something that you're trying to do and it's not working out, you might need to just go on a slightly different strategy. You might need to go on a slightly different tack to make it happen. Does that answer the question?
I
don't know what Shane would.
Shane, any advice on how best to relax and not overthink a situation?
I'm probably the worst person to answer this question, to be perfectly honest, because I'm terrible at relaxing and I tend to overthink a lot of stuff. I suppose for me, I try, I'm working really, really hard at the moment on just trying to stay present. And one of the things that's helped me massively, probably in the last 3 years, and I don't really speak or write about it quite a lot, is I do a lot of journaling. So I actually get a lot of my stuff out on paper. So I write a lot and I get my thoughts, and it just helps me stay present, helps me focus on the things I need to focus on. And for me, with a lot of these challenges and training and events, a lot of it is in the future. I try my best just to, focus on what I'm doing today and do that as best I can, because if I do that as best I can, the event will fall into place.
Okay, I'm going to keep it moving here with some very positive comments coming through. Thanks to Shane and Karen for two most inspiring talks. Well done from Patrick.
Thanks, Patrick.
Melissa says, amazing talk, great energy you have. Thanks for sharing your experience. I enjoyed listening to you and I agree with everything you said, and I wish you the best of luck. You definitely inspired me to push myself more, risk and go out of my comfort zone, especially to do it myself first and with friends. Cheers and thanks. So very positive contributions coming through there. Question for you, Shane. You said you started your first business when you were 19. How did you gain traffic to your business, and what advice would you give to an entrepreneur getting their first clients?
I could give two answers to this. I'll give the honest answer first. And when I was 19, I completely winged it, as I think a lot of people do with their first entrepreneurial venture. Second off, I think probably, identify a problem and that people face in either a daily or a weekly basis, and create a solution and sell that. You're selling either a solution or experience. That's one of my, I suppose, ethoses as well. And if you can make people happy and create a community around it, it's going to be a good business.
Thank you, Shane. Question for you, Karen. Do you ever really get really exhausted, and what do you do to get your energy back?
Do you know what? One thing and actually I was going to use it as an example on the talk this evening. I was thinking about when was I the most exhausted in my entire life, and I know exactly when it was, and it was crossing Canada, and I was about maybe 700 miles before the end, Halifax, and I remember I'd come over a wrong road, basically a really rubbly, rough road, and on a trail bike, that's not really the right thing when you have your panniers juggling on the back, and there was a really strong headwind. Got into my tent, I was shattered. I was never so tired in my entire life. And the biggest learning thing I learned from that instance was I'd run out of food as well. And the next food was another 40 miles. And I got up the next day and I was perfect. It was just unbelievable. Now I was hungry, but the biggest lesson I took from the Canadian trip was what a difference a day makes. Because that note of what a difference a day makes has happened me on so many situations since that. So like I was exhausted, I was tired, I was hungry, I was, I just, if I'd had my friends there in a car to drive me to a whatever, I would have done it. And but then the next day you get up and off you go again. Your body is amazing. Like the body is a machine, if you want it to be. So that would be my answer. Thanks.
Thank you. What's the best food and drink to bring on a day of hiking and kayaking? Whichever wish of you would like to take that.
You go for that one, Shane. Your turn.
For me, I'm like, if there was a stereotypical West of Ireland diet, I fit myself in there. It's a big bowl of porridge in the morning with berries and peanut butter and a coffee. And then usually, to be honest, if I'm actually going running for an extended period of time, I wouldn't actually bring a ton of food with me. I'd bring more liquids and maybe a couple of gels. If I was going hiking, it might be just a packed sandwich, banana, water, and if I'm in need of some caffeine, maybe a flask of coffee or something like that, or a handy kind of protein bar or something like that. Just keep myself topped up. I keep my nutrition incredibly simple.
Okay, thank you, Shane. I'm going to keep going, Karen. There's a recommendation here for the Kerry Canoeing Club in Killorglin, County Kerry, and it's called kerrycanoeclub.com for anybody who's interested there. There's a message for you, Karen, from John, and it says, my secondary school is following your progress over the last few weeks, and I just want to say the boys are becoming inspired by your challenge of rowing 3,000 miles as well as the girls, and it's
great. Woo!
It's great to share your trip through their well-being and SPHE class. So you're inspiring people from all walks of life there, Karen.
Brilliant. That's good to hear.
Somebody here has volunteered a bucket for your canoe when you approach the 20-foot Atlantic waves, Karen, so I'll get a tongue in cheek there. There's an interesting one coming through there. Question here around training and injury. How do you deal and cope with injury? I suppose, and we'll put that question out to you both.
Don't you fire away there, Shane, if you want?
Yeah, I think for me, I suppose what I've learned over the last number of years is the hardest part for me, and people don't talk about this when they go looking for injury rehabilitation, is the actual mental side of it. For me, I thought myself, over the last 10 years, if I got injured from running, and in my own mind, I would tell myself the only thing I was actually good at in my life as a young adult or late teenager was taken away from me. And that was really, really hard for me to deal with. But now I've looked at it in a different way. I kind of accept it, find the source, make sure I learn from how I got injured and not to do that again. And then look at other ways. That's kind of how I got into, ultra cycling and triathlons and stuff, because I was getting injured running. So I had to swim and cycle. So find other ways to stay fit, find other ways to have fun. I think make sure you have fun as well with all the extreme things as well, because, fun is sustainable, but, pushing yourself really hard every day isn't. And I suppose the last point then would be make sure you listen to your body. We all have different signals and things like that. And I think listening to your body is one of the best skills you can teach yourself.
Thank you, Shane. Karen, what would you say to that question?
Yeah, I'd say, listen to your body and just give your body a break when it needs it. Like sometimes you can push yourself too far and then it takes longer to recover. So it's, and then just trying to avoid injury, which sounds really, really simplistic, but just to do those exercises that if you're in a gym situation, to do those, like say if you're doing, I don't know, bench press or whatever, that you know how to do it properly, and that you you mind yourself.
Okay.
Not a great answer, but yeah.
Final question for you both. We're going to wrap up after this one. Thanks for great presentations. I'd love to know what has been the standout moment for both speakers.
Ooh, that's a hard one.
It is a hard one.
Will I go first, Shane?
Yeah, after you, Karen.
I suppose just from a totally different trip, one of my things that always comes to the fore was in a place called Bahia do Baluga, which is just off the coast of Mexico. We were sailing from Acapulco up to Baja California, and there was humpback whales just jumping out of the water, breaching out of the water with phosphorescence, the luminous plankton coming down their bodies. And that for me has to be one of the highlights of my life, I have to say. Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you, Karen. Shane?
Karen, are you sure that wasn't off the West Kerry coast, no?
It could have been. Yeah.
I think Michael probably, and again, thank you for the questions as well. I think, yeah, for me, my highlight is it's a funny one because I don't have a photo or a video of it, but my highlight over last probably, like I said, 11 years or so was probably about 4 weeks after the 24 marathons finished. We had a little kind of a party and stuff like that for the charity in Dublin, and the next morning I was leaving and I was approached by a lady whose son has spina bifida, and she was bawling crying, and she said that the money that we raised during the 24 marathons went to put a bathroom in downstairs in their house, and for a single mom, she said it changed her life. So for me, you know, that's probably the moment that really I think about probably every week, you know. So it's good to, you know, be able to do that for people that you've never met, you know. So for me, out of everything, if I was to pick one moment, other than getting to the Brooklyn Bridge after 36 days, that'd probably be it.
Well, listen, sincere thanks to you both. Really, you gave just absolutely phenomenal and inspirational talks there this evening. Really connected with the audience. I can see our participant number really stayed solid through the course of the time, so people were riveted by what you had to say. I want to thank you both sincerely. I want to thank Orla Coughlin and everybody from Kerry SciTech. I know we've Aoife O'Brien working there in the background for Kerry SciTech. Sincere thanks. Mervyn O'Mahony and Philip O'Reilly in Munster Technological University, who've made it all happen technically. I just want to remind people, we have a competition running. So if you want to win the adventure pack, courtesy of Crua Outdoors, who make the world's best insulated tents and the best outdoor gear company, answer the following questions. How many kilometers does Karen Weeks plan to row solo across the Atlantic in December 2021? Submit your name, email address, and correct answer to succeedingtogether@mtu.ie by 10 p.m. on the 10th of May. So on that note, we'll conclude. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to our speakers.
Thanks a million.
Kerry SciTech.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks very much.
Thanks to colleagues in MTU. And tonight really was a night where we succeeded together. Thanks, everybody.
Nice.